Hello, and welcome back to The Exchange, a podcast featuring real stories, real people, and real purpose. I'm Ruby Jones, and in this episode, you'll meet John-Claude, or JC Futrell. He's a creative strategist, an educator, and a community leader. Also known by his stage name, Panama Soweto, his work sits at the intersection of art, advocacy, and impact. As the founder of RealArtLife, JC helps artists and creative entrepreneurs turn vision into strategy. He empowers them to build sustainable careers rooted in purpose and authenticity. His background as a poet, performer, and curator has shaped a lifelong belief that the arts are a pathway to belonging, understanding, and transformation. And that same belief now guides his newest chapter in public service. At the end of September, JC was sworn in as a director for District B on the Cherry Creek School District Board of Education. He's preparing to impact the lives of young people through steady leadership, creative thinking, and expanded access to arts education. In our conversation, we'll explore how his personal journey, from the spoken word stage to the school board, informs his approach to leadership, to equity, and to youth empowerment. We also look ahead at how JC envisions bridging creativity and policy to build stronger, more inspired communities for the next generation. Let's dive in. I love the Janelle Monáe.
It's a detour. It's one of his playable paintings. There's a whole circuit board behind it. And when it's all set up, I can have it hooked up to a computer or a keyboard or anything that has a MIDI controller and treat it just like a piano and just kind of like touch the little triangles there and it triggers a key.
Oh my gosh, my mind is constantly blown by him. Like, what?
Yeah, I know. He doesn't even make these anymore. This is like, he did a series of these about 10 years ago, and then he still plays with the technology, but he doesn't make these anymore like he used to, which is kind of crazy because I think it's one of the coolest things he's ever done.
Yeah, definitely. Well, society needs some inspiration right now, and I know music
Oh,
helps with that, so he needs to bring it back, do a
abs-
reboot.
absolutely. Who are you telling? Absolutely. Talking
Yeah.
music, like, Grammy nods and all that stuff. And I just, as an old head, like, I really appreciate Mass Appeal Records and what they're doing with like all the classic hip hop artists that I grew up with and like reimagining their projects. It's like, it's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, this is such an artistic time, and it's so weird because then you have, like, AI that's doing its thing, and so you think about, like, the artists who can't be in certain spaces that they're used to, but it's like this new wave of innovation, and it's
Yeah.
almost like art is fighting back, like, we're not going down silently.
Right. And fighting really hard. There are artists right now that they may not like AI, but they understand that it's a tool that's being used in the industry. And so they have to be able to navigate like around it. So, I think last week we saw the first AI artist to chart on Billboard. And people had mixed feelings about it, myself too, because like the AI artist came from a real artist who wrote all the lyrics
Yeah,
and all the concepts and the arrangement, but just they felt like they couldn't sing like, at that high level. And
yeah.
so having the AI support them to be able to create something is really interesting because they just used it as a tool and not as the creator. So, like, how can you be mad at that?
Yeah, that's very true. Now tell me, do you prefer to go by JC or Jean-Claude? Is it Jean-Claude?
Yeah, after my grandfather, yeah, it's John-Claude. And JC is great. That's what a lot of people know me by. For years, people thought my legal name was Panama Soweto
Yeah.
because that's my stage name, and it's how I toured and all those things. And so, people that I've known for a very long time are very surprised to know that that's not my legal name.
Well, where's your family from? Because that's a unique name.
So the way that I got my name is really interesting. My mother and father argued about what to name me. And so my mom wanted to name me Toussaint after Toussaint Louverture, who was the Haitian freedom fighter who liberated the country of Haiti from the French, the first colonial power to fall from an oppressed and colonized people in the New World. And my father didn't like that, so he pushed back, and he thought my name should have been Ishmael. My mom was pretty savvy and said, "Well, hold on, Ishmael was the son of a slave, and I'm not a slave. It's like really taking names into context. So what they did is they took my grandfather's names on both sides, on my mother's side and then on my dad's side, and then just combined them together with a hyphen to make John-Claude. But to my French brothers and sisters, they like to pronounce it Jean. So it sounds that way, and I've got aunties that kind of tease me that too. But that's where my name came from. And yeah, my family's from all over. On my mother's side, we have some really deep Southern roots in Mississippi and in Atlanta and in Arkansas. And on my father's side, really northern, like breadbasket, uh, Motown, Detroit, Michigan, Illinois area. And then I and my siblings were born in New York and then moved out here to Colorado in the early 90s.
Well, that's a very deep family history. I love the story of your name. The origin is great. Tell me about what's going on for you right now and what motivated you to step into public service and education, how your
Wow.
background in arts and entertainment kind of ties into that. And really, I mean, what your plans are and your priorities for Cherry Creek School District.
Ruby, thank you so much, and thanks for connecting with me again on stories about our community. I'm a lifelong, servant to the arts and education, and have worked for over 30 years in some capacity, trying to get access for people to the arts and to different modalities in career exploration and financial literacy and community engagement and policy change. I started off as an intern at the downtown Aurora Visual Arts, right there off of Colfax and Emporia, as a kid, where was the foreman for a large mural project that I knew nothing about at the time. All the adults knew about me when I was that age is that I like putting up images up on walls, and so they thought, well, if they gave me something constructive to do with it, uh, maybe I wouldn't get in so much trouble, and it worked. And so since then, I've really dedicated my life to the arts and what it could be for people that look like me, especially. Born and raised in New York. My father was an artist, and so I spent a lot of time in his studios. My first memories are of being in studios that he leased out that were owned by, like Romer Bearden, and they were up in Harlem, up 125th Street. So I was always kind of like around that spirit, and especially around that spirit of cultural representation through the arts and storytelling through all the methods that we choose, including music. And so I fell in love with it early on and just knew that I wanted to do something meaningful with my life and the work that I was creating. So since being a kid, I've run everything from workshops as an intern at some of these big organizations to climbing up the ladder to be an executive and a director at the Denver Art Museum, one of the largest cultural institutions, west of the Mississippi, representing our area here in the foothills of the Great Rockies. So I've always just had a passion for art. And I've always loved being just inspired by people that are smarter and more creative than me. So low key, like everything that I'm doing is just kind of to keep my soul like full by being inspired by artists and young people,
Yeah.
and then sharing that with other people too. And right now I'm currently running my own LLC to represent artists and give them opportunities either in funding or in PR, marketing, and in project management for some of their large projects. Thomas Evans being one of those people. Redline Contemporary Arts Center being one of those clients as well. I've worked with Cleo Parker Robinson recently to help document more than, oh gosh, it was 50 years worth of journals for her so that we can start talking about what it would look like to write a screenplay about her life and her life story. Everything from opening up studios for artists experiencing houselessness here in Denver and down in rural Colorado in Trinidad, and recently being appointed to the Cherry Creek School District's District B position, which was really a blessing that I was not expecting. My grandparents were very much involved in politics, and so by default, I was involved in politics because as a kid, they had me hopping out of their old Cutlass and Oldsmobile cars with these lawn signs and rushing out into these fields and putting the signs down and rushing back to the car, before I even fully had woken up yet, and we did a lot of that. And, I was always around, the movers and the shakers and the people that I find to be really inspiring freedom fighters and activists that my grandparents knew well. And that work just became very much a part of me. And so when the calling came to offer myself up as once again to have the opportunity to push accessibility for all. With the Cherry Creek School District, I took it. So Ruthie Knowles, who faithfully held this seat after being elected, can no longer hold her seat, and I was nominated by several people at Cherry Creek and in the community as somebody that could be a trusted voice for that seat. Especially since I'm a product of the Cherry Creek school system. I went to Prairie. I'm a proud Prairie Hawk, and even more so, I'm a proud Blazer. They were the Trailblazers back then when I was going there back in the '90s, but they're just the Blazers now. And so, just representing the Ozone and holding down our families here in North Aurora for the Cherry Creek School District was something that I couldn't turn away from.
Well, you have an impressive background, and it's really interesting to hear about your upbringing and your journey in arts and storytelling, really. And for you to be bringing that to the Cherry Creek School District and have all of this amazing artistic experience backing you, I really think that's so cool, especially right now. We're dealing with so much in the world. And so for young people to be able to draw upon some of your experiences and really finding the strength of their own voice. What are your hopes when it comes to your involvement in the school district and some of these schools where students we know are struggling and
Yes.
they're looking for these creative outlets to really kind of enhance their lives?
Yeah, thank you. I've really jumped in with both feet. I think Cherry Creek is doing some really innovative things that can be reflected by the results of this past election for those two open board seats that we will be welcoming in our two newest members. And with that, I think that the direction that the district is taking right now is the right direction. And with a little bit of help and some community members who are deeply connected and tied to the communities of these kids that we are trying to reach being more active, I think that we'll get to where we need to be, within the time frame that the district has allowed. And so my big push is always accessibility, and it's not just for the arts, but it's also for career exploration and what it could look like for our young people to not just think about what they want to be after they leave school, but how they're going to be, right? And what are the resources that are available to them, and that they shouldn't be detoured by things like the fluctuating of the markets and blah blah blah. It's like, what do you love and what do you want to invest yourself in, and how can we make sure that you can be sustainable by doing it? And so, my pathway through the arts wasn't a traditional one. I just happened to, luck out and be able to make money as a performing and touring artist, as a spoken word artist by the name of Panama Soweto. But at the same time, I'm also able to sit in these boardrooms and to make some decisions that affect policy change. And so, my big thing is giving more access to the arts for our kids. And that is a big focus why I'm here. We're going to be working on some really interesting initiatives to bring orchestra music into the classrooms of our Cherry Creek School District kids. We're going to be really pushing literacy as it is one of the main focuses of our school district this year. We saw that we had pretty much some flat numbers come back as far as our literacy improvement was concerned last school year, but our math numbers really drove up. And I really want to be able to show a way and help in a way for our kids to understand that like both math and literacy or math literacy or literacy with math are all one and the same thing. It's all storytelling, right? And so how do we, take away some of those stigmas around learning and test taking and really bring the fun and the joy back to learning and really pushing us in the direction that makes it really, really easy and accessible. So I'm looking at music, I'm looking at poetry, I'm looking at painting and dance and all of the things and all the resources that I have available to me to bring to the table to Cherry Creek and bring more accessibility to those things.
You said you want students to think about not what they want to be, but how they want to be. I think
Yes.
that is phenomenal, especially right now. I mean, like you said, the markets are changing. Our world as we know it is going through transformation. You mentioned,
Yeah.
Cleo Parker Robinson and
Yeah.
working with her. I think that's a very cool project. I cannot wait to see what you do with that. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. One of the
Thank you.
things I'm excited about, yeah, is their facility is expanding with that Center for Healing Arts. And so
Yes, the Healing Arts Center. Yes.
yeah, and so I wanna know when it comes to storytelling in your journey, how have you seen storytelling help heal someone's experience or their life or just motivate them to really focus on how they want to be and not be so caught up with feeling broken by a system that is frankly broken?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm a product of that. I was born in 1976 in the 1900s, as my kids say, and grew up in the 80s, in the Reaganomic 80s in New York City. I can remember as a kid still getting warnings for acid rain, what that would look like for our breathing and just being outside during the day. I grew up in an era that gave us the crack epidemic and AIDS and just knowing that there have been rough times in our history that were not driven by hope and accessibility, but by fear and struggle. And so, in thinking about today, what I want to see for my kids, I really just want to make sure that they understand that there are multiple pathways to success, and none of us are driven by any one of them. The Cherry Creek School District has had this motto of dedicated to excellence for the past 75 years that we're celebrating our anniversary. This year. Really, I mean, my twist on that though is really how do we define your own excellence? And so excellence can look like many different things to many different people. And so for those of us that are scared and uncertain about what the future can hold, there's even more of us that are hopeful about what we can create together, just knowing that there are opportunities right now for us to grow and to take advantage of some of the things that we may not have thought about previously. Regardless of whatever is happening in Washington right now, what it is reminding us is that it is never too late to get involved at the community level. That even if the big picture seems a little bleak, that there is a lot in the detail, right? In those small parts that make the big picture. And that's who we are. And so that's why it's important to support your local food banks. It's important to support your local schools by volunteering. It's important to support your faith-based organizations. It's important to support your lodges and community groups who are doing good work out there. So ultimately, when I'm looking at the world and how bleak it may be, I truly believe that the arts are the way to heal us through that because I'm a product of that. And I can tell you a million stories about kids that I've worked with, from the Denver Art Museum to Redline Contemporary Arts Center to Downtown Aurora Visual Arts, to all the orgs that I've worked with over the years. And I can tell you, in each and every one of those instances, there were always young people that taught me something about the importance of community building
Mm.
and focusing on every person as a person and not just the number. I've seen kids who were refugees and immigrants who came to this country with absolutely nothing that were, accepted into NYU for full ride scholarships. I've seen kids get Daniels Fund scholarships to be able to support their dreams of becoming engineers. And all of those kids were brought to me with the idea of how can we use art to help them achieve their goals. And being just a small part of that has been very exciting. So, I mean, I can ramble on, I can give you stories after stories after stories, but the big idea is that art, at least in my world, has always been a vehicle for progress. It has always been a vehicle for change and storytelling.
I think it's great that this wave of leadership that we're seeing now, it is willing and ready to learn from its constituents. It's not
Mm.
all about, I have all the knowledge, I have all the wisdom, I'm going to just share it with you and you have to learn from me. And I think
Right.
one of the best things about a good leader is that a good leader learns from the experience of leading and recognizes the strengths in others. And so, especially when you're working with kids, I mean,
Yes.
to stand here and say that the kids are teaching me too, that says a lot about you and your ability to continue to adapt and change and grow. So you said though that you've had a small role in some of these projects, but you think about some of the major projects that we know of throughout history, and there's always someone like you, but they're behind the scenes. And I don't think we think a lot about the person who's really amplifying the art that's being made and working with these artists to, do their publicity and help them stand in the spotlight while you're cheering them on. And I'm
Right.
curious to know, like, what is one of your core values or something that really motivates you to be able to stand in that space and
Yeah.
cheer for other people and really
Hmm.
highlight other people? I mean, we've cheered for you as well on stage, but like, what gives you that resolve to be like, no, I'm going to elevate you and put you on a platform and I want to see you win?
That's a great question. You know what? I think that it really is centered and rooted in the idea of community, that I can't succeed if you don't, that I don't exist in a bubble, that all of us are connected and that our connectivity is the best part of us. And it's what makes us special, that we're all just little parts of any one story. No one story, exists without the players and the voices and all of those components. And so I've just been blessed enough to feel like my stories that I have told either on stage or through photography or painting or drawing or whatever, that they've been received by community. And I've had people that have really propped me up and given me the courage and the motivation to be able to continue to tell these stories because they connect. And so I just see it as this is my duty in this ecosystem to do the exact same, especially when I'm inspired. And so to cheerlead and to promote and to support and to uplift other artists that are doing things that I think are absolutely essential in our like archiving of our history through these stories is just my place. It's just being comfortable with my little slot of the puzzle that sometimes needs to be twisted over to the right, sometimes twisted to the left, or sometimes just kind of pounded into the big picture. But either way, I just find it as part of the entire experience of being a working artist and someone who is involved in a community, whatever that community might be. And so at some point, yeah, you need to cheerlead for those that you're in the trenches with. Sometimes it's better to give your quiet support more so than being in the forefront and being at the top of the billing or the top of the marquee, because maybe I can have more of an impact there.
I love that. I love that. That's really great. It sounds like selflessness to me. I mean, the work that you're doing really is an asset and a benefit to our community, to our children. So thank you for that. And tell me, how can we support you? How can the community show up for you at this time?
Oh, wow. That's great. I think supporting me is supporting those who are in the most need, whatever that looks like. I can go on and on about, Aurora and North Aurora and, East Colfax and what our needs are here in this community. But ultimately, if we are talking about the collective, I, I think that the best way that I can be supported is by supporting your neighbors, supporting your local schools, supporting a food bank, supporting an art studio, supporting people who are in the business of empathy. Like anyone who's in the business of empathy, support that and you're supporting me because I'm also a part of this ecosystem, right? Like my kids are a part of this ecosystem. What happens to them is impacted by what happens to their classmates. And so if we're not taking care of each other, I think the biggest thing, and it's a reminder to us too, like whatever happened to empathy? Like how did we get so far removed from empathy for caring for one another? It's just really interesting seeing the discourse that's happening in this country right now. especially with the holidays coming up. I wonder how people are
Yeah.
going to justify masked people, kidnapping like our neighbors, like the people that we live with, like watching them getting snatched by armed, masked people in broad daylight. I wonder how that sits with people. I truly do. And then taking away food benefits at a time where prices are already too high, and a time where when the seasons change, we are reminded of the scarcity of 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 our resources
Yeah.
and how important it is to share and to give because the world gives and the world takes away. And so I just really I would encourage people to be reminded of what empathy looks like. And if they could truly see themselves in other shoes and whether or not their behavior and their anger and their need for revenge and self-preservation really suits them.
Wow.
Yeah, me, I'm good. I'm good. I'll be all right. Like, if y'all want to hit my website and you want to check me out on on where I am with my music and all that other stuff, that's great. You can do that, but really what would help me is making sure that we're helping each other. And that's not capped. That's not something that I'm saying for the listeners and the viewers. It truly is a value and a lifestyle that I live by and that I'm teaching my kids to live by too, that none of us are getting out of this without each other.
Mm.
And so if we're not truly looking at each other through a lens that says, what I want for myself, I also want for you, it's only going to get a lot harder.
John-Claude for president is what I'm hearing.
Oh
That's
my God.
and that's exactly
No.
the type of messaging we need. I know that's not for everybody, but no, the
Yeah,
community leadership that starts from that messaging is really all we need. And,
right.
thinking back to the arts and healing
Right.
and you mentioning like the difficult times that you lived through, that our country has lived through, and just that humanity has lived through. I'm inspired that you working with young people means that they get to see examples of how artistic expression helped us in those times too. I agree with you when it comes to the empathy, and 100% I have theories on that
Yeah.
as well. But
Yeah.
when it comes to that hope and that inspiration during troubled times, I'm just so glad that you are sitting in this seat and you with all of your lived experience and background, and that the people who have fed into you to teach you these very important life lessons that you are speaking generations of wisdom right now. So please continue your work and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I honestly I don't have any aspirations of politics at all. Like I find it kind of scary
Yeah.
altogether, but my grandparents also they really did like instill this in my head, and that is you don't wait for somebody else to do the work that you can do yourself. And so, it would be very easy, when the call came in to say, no, I'm too busy or no, I can't. But if there aren't others that, we can trust to be able to lead us to where we need to be, and sometimes you just got to do it yourself, regardless if you feel prepared or not. There is still such a thing as leaps of faith. And so I'm taking a leap of faith here, and I just hope I do my community proud by listening to them and taking their concerns to the highest level that I possibly can when it comes to how we support not just our kids, but our teachers, our contractors for the schools, our staff, our administrators, our legal team, like everybody that goes into supporting a school district, as long as they feel seen and supported, that's my end goal. And so whatever comes of this, if I do nothing else, I'm hoping that I can do that. And then, when my seat is up here in a year, 2027, I'll think about, running to maintain that seat depending on how good or bad I do while I'm here.
I'm sure you'll do great, and that's wherever you go and whatever you do, and I know the artists and everyone that you've worked with will agree. So, thank you again for all of your hard work and for being such a light in a time of just shadows and craziness and darkness. I appreciate talking to you today.
Thanks. I appreciate you too. And you're part of that ecosystem, the storytelling and all the work that you've done and continue to do and bringing this messaging. You if anything for you to do something for me, be audacious, be loud, be 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 unapologetically whatever it is that you are, because that's what we need more of right now. As fear and intimidation are rampant, in our society, and the only way to defeat a bully is to stand up to a bully.
Oh, I like that.
That's it. You can't run from bullies because they will follow you.
Yeah.
You can't ignore bullies because that will empower them. The
Hmm.
only way to get through bullies is by standing up to them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Thanks,
your
Ruby.
time. Yeah.
Appreciate you.